it's important that you have like a higher self developed, right? So that you can differentiate between like, I don't like this feeling. It doesn't feel like it's in alignment with like who I am and who I'm trying to become. We can't reach those goals when we're not living as the person that we want to become. That's where those barriers come in. So our ego is always striving for more and always going to tell us that we're not good enough. It's always going to be seeking external validation.
Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Tomczyk. Welcome to the Connected Mindset Podcast, where each week we bring you the stories to better connect with the world around you. Let's dive into this week's podcast.
Carly, welcome back to the Connected Mindset.
Thank you. It's so good to be back. I appreciate it.
I'm glad to have you on. One of the ways we left off, we talked a lot last time about sound healing, connecting to self, and really generational lines and how we bring that into our daily lives. And a lot of us are trying to solve those generational lines, and we're looking at ourselves holistically. And when we were parting from our last discussion, you had mentioned a resource called No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz. And I've had the opportunity to dive into that between then and now, and it's been extremely breakthrough. So I wanted to bring that to our audience and have you initially start off by helping the audience understand what is internal family systems and how can people make sense of it in their daily lives.
So I'm excited that we're talking about this. I do think this is a revolutionary way to like look at the self. And so internal family systems is essentially a framework, right? And Dick Schwartz developed it actually while he was doing his PhD and he was working with people with eating disorders. The way I conceptualize internal family systems is I get people to like think about a big round table. And the idea is that we're trying to like develop into our highest self. And our highest self is the one who's like living our most aligned life, right? But we have these parts that have been created throughout our lives through like rupture or trauma or whatever. And they're vying for like this the head of the table seat. And a lot of our parts are stuck and they don't realize that we have evolved into this high self. So some of our parts will think that we're still like 7 years old, not realizing now that we're in our 30s and like have learned all these skills and developed in all these ways. And so it gets scared. So it tries to pull us back.
Interesting.
If that's helpful.
Yeah, it does. I think we're at that time of the year too, where people are more motivated than other times of the year to reflect on themselves and how they're going to put goals in place or objectives in place to try to address some of those parts, which a lot of the people that I have discussions with look at those bad parts as overtaking that higher self, and that's their whole being. So when they look at those ruptures or those fractures, what do you think is the best way for somebody listening in today to be able to label them and then evaluate, like, not necessarily where they came from, but how they're showing up in their daily lives?
I don't know if, like, I think labeling them is probably easier than we think. I think it's being aware of them. I think it's like, oh, this is coming up for me. And instead of thinking like, this is a part of me or this is who I am, like, this is my angry part or this is my jealous part. And so being able to recognize that that's what's coming up and not allowing it to start to take over. So having that awareness. And it's important that you have like a higher self developed, right? So that you can differentiate between like, I don't like this feeling. It doesn't feel like it's in alignment with like who I am and who I'm trying to become. But holy, they are like really active and I don't know how to get them to calm down.
Yeah, I'm big on, it's probably over the past 2 years, I've really tried to focus more on who I become than what I accomplish or what I do. And that's like one of the themes that this show is going to go through this year, is really reiterating that we need to have goals, we need to have objectives, but those goals should be tied to who you want to become, who that higher self really is, versus a lot of times as human beings, we become human doings and we're so focused on the revenue goal, and all those things are great, but we're making that goal so we can become closer to that higher self, and it gets blurred and mumble jumbled up.
And depending on who you ask, like if and when you live in alignment, then that's when those goals get accomplished. we can't reach those goals when we're not living as the person that we want to become. That's where those barriers come in too. So I think it's a good motivator. Like if you are yourself, if you're doing the things that, and when I say living in alignment, it's like what feels good. Like when you make a decision, it's like, oh, this feels good in my body. I'm not like tensing up and being like, oh my God, I don't actually want to show up. Right. But when it's like full body, yes, then it's like, then you're going to do the thing and then the revenue is going to come.
Yeah. How do we, and this is something we're all, and each of us are continuing to evolve within. I think awareness starts with listening and being able to listen to your thoughts, listen to that feeling of that gut feeling is what some people call it, or intuition. How have you seen folks like open their ears up or open that feeling channel up to be able to allow them to listen to the thoughts, then they can start to translate?
Well, I think it's important to have somebody that you can trust to like be a mirror for you. But it's also less about the thoughts than it is about the feelings, because our thoughts are kind of, I don't know what the word is, but they're not facts. They're fleeting a lot of times. And in other frameworks like cognitive behavioral therapy, our thoughts are based off of, what we're feeling. And so we interpret the feeling and then we think about it and then we behave accordingly. So it's like taking a pause, I think, and being like, what's actually coming up? I am feeling angry about this. Why am I feeling angry? Oh, because this person is living a life that I want to live. And then we go so quickly into like wanting to shut that part off that I think what you're saying is like, we don't listen long enough to figure out like why we actually feel the way that we feel. It's just like, oh, well, because they're stupid.
Yeah.
I don't like them.
Yeah, right. The thoughts are often misleading. It's like our thoughts play against us, but our feelings play with us. And I think those are the two that are always fighting.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it. Our feelings are with us. And in the book, he talks about like you're sitting with it, and it's not the first thing that comes to your mind. It's the first thing that comes up for you. And I do have a hard time differentiating that, but it's like that body feeling, that body knowing that's coming up versus like the first fleeting thought that comes into your mind.
Interesting. Yeah, it comes up and then gets translated through this versus it gets created here, then it goes down to your body, and that's how a lot of us are operating. We're very cerebral animals or beings, and we start from the top and go down because
it's safe. We don't like to feel, and a lot of us, we could argue, are probably walking around with the dysregulated nervous system, and so we try and get out of our body.
Yeah, I always think of one of the things I've been the past couple of years is like things happen through me, and if it's through me, it's kind of bottom up. But if it's to me, then it's like happening to my brain. Then I'm like, all right, I got to act because this is what the environment is telling me is right versus what is coming inside.
Yeah,
kind of more through me than to me, which is important here. When you think about like cognitive behavioral therapy, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions around therapies in general.
Sure.
Especially like people label it like talk therapy, and then it just becomes you in a negative cycle. How do you make sense of the different types of therapy? So you have cognitive behavioral and.
So I think of them as frameworks, right? So I am a therapist that practices that there's not a one size fits all. And I'm blending a lot of the things that I've learned. Like I'm not just going to sit down and talk to you about like cognitive behavioral therapy and ignore your parts. I'm going to be like, well, is that a part that's coming up? And are you reacting to the thought? So I think that it's really important that we integrate all of these different frameworks and recognize that there's no right one. There's going to be some that work better for others. Some people, cognitive behavioral therapy, it is kind of like a standard, but maybe they need something that is more somatic, which would be like internal family systems, because it is more of a meditative sit in your body, feel what's coming up, instead of like, again, like you said, being more cerebral about like, oh, well, your thoughts are playing tricks on you and you need to reframe the thought to then like do a different behavior.
Yeah, I love that you take a more holistic approach. I think a lot of the questions that come up because it's connected mindset and we're not all about just the cerebral, just the mind. We want people to sometimes get out of their mind, because it can be a dark place.
Please.
But that's a big part of connection, right? It's like connecting to self, and it's outside of just the mind. But listening to your body gives you some mindsets that you can take action on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that sometimes we feel so disconnected because we believe that we are experiencing something in isolation. And there's a little bit of shame, maybe, that we're going through something hard or uncomfortable. And so we keep it to ourselves rather than sharing it outward. So people can be like, oh, I actually went through something really similar. This is how I got through it. But we internalize it and keep it to ourselves and stay disconnected from community.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the biggest myths around speaking with a professional when you're not going through something difficult?
Oh, I love this question. That a therapist is there to fix you. Like, I don't think that's my job at all. I think a big misconception is that I have to be going through something or something had to have happened. I need to have trauma in order to see a therapist. But really, I mean, at least for myself, I'm there to be a guide. I'm there to be a mirror, because we bring ourselves and our parts and our patterns with us. So if you're demonstrating something in a relationship, there's the likelihood that you're demonstrating this across the board, at work, with family, whatever. And so it helps someone get that outside awareness. It's not a friend. It's not a family member who's maybe biased, right? Especially if we're trying to work through like relationship issues. If someone hates your partner, they're not going to give you very good feedback about what you should do, right? Yeah. But a therapist is like an unobjective third party who is helping to be a mirror and a guide for whatever it is that you're trying to navigate.
I think it's big on people wait to do the work until they're forced to do it. And it's like, how do we get people to have the breakthroughs, to have the connection, to have those shifts, and to listen before they're hit upside the head? And that's a question that keeps coming up for me, is how do you get someone to do something they know they need to do, but still don't do it?
Okay, that's different when I thought you were going to ask, because I was going to, like, if you don't know and if you don't have any awareness, then you're not going to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that not doing it. So if we think about stages of change, there's a cycle, right? Like you are pre-contemplative, contemplative, and then you're taking action and blah, blah, blah. But I think that you have to get past the fear, because a lot of people don't do things because they're afraid. And if we take it a bit further, then it's like, what happens if I heal? As much as we want to heal and as much as we want to change, if that's something different that we've never experienced or never been to, then we're actually can be very afraid of it. And we don't know how to hold that. And so it's like, well, I'm uncomfortable, but this is a familiar uncomfortable, instead of being in a unfamiliar uncomfortable and having to learn new skills to how to navigate that. And so I think it comes back to being about being safe.
I think a lot of the journey is it's life skills. It's versus like skills we can monetize. And a lot of people think skills, like as a baseball player, it's like you need these skills to be a baseball player to get paid to do it. Or like, it's like it's very destination focused versus I need the skills to navigate this crazy thing we call life.
Well, and using that example though, so again, if we zoom out, then what did you learn along the way? What did you learn about being a teammate? What did you learn about being resilient? And so I think it's more so identifying skills that we're not looking to monetize. We're not looking at your, I don't know any baseball analytics right now, but like we're not looking at your pitch percent or your on base or whatever it is. Like we're looking at, how do you show up for your teammates when they just blew the close or whatever, when they committed an error and it was, tied in the championship. Like those are the things that are important that we do learn through the journey, but sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for developing those skills along the way. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Our coaches used to call that the intangible nature of, you as a person. And then the tangible was like the stats, the things they identify, your height, your like the length of your arms, things of that nature. And I think the intangible skills are really I think most impactful when it comes down to like living through the day to day. Those more tangible ones are, in my opinion, just like good to haves. Like they're good to haves, or they're a part of your body or your structure. They're not a part of like your being, the vehicle.
Yeah. And again, if we are talking about like our parts, then a lot of it is about safety. And so if we're talking about gender roles, right? A lot of men were raised to not be vulnerable. So even though you were a great teammate, were you encouraged to like make a call after the game to be like, hey bro, I know that was really hard for you. Like that was terrible. Like I'm here if you need it. And so we keep those parts of us away because we've been kind of conditioned, like we talked about last time, like that those aren't safe parts to allow out. But I think society is shifting a bit and we're starting to recognize that vulnerability is definitely a superpower and part of the connection. But for a long time we were like, don't talk to me.
Yeah. I noticed in some of your posts, like you like to dive into the astrology and like how last year was the year of the snake and this year is the year of the fire horse. And I'm really bought into those types of making sense of things, because I felt like last year was a lot of shedding, at least for me personally. And I feel like there's a lot of people around me that were going through the same type of process where they feel lighter, you know, even going into like February when it changes over. Yeah. And I wanted to bring that to the audience in a way that maybe they don't need to dive into astrology fully. Sure. But just making sense of how astrology impacts us as humans.
So I think that it's like a little complicated, but so without like, you know, trying to like force astrology down people's throats, I make meaning of it because it's hard for me to ignore something that's so accurate, right? Like we're like you, me, all these people that we knew, we're all going through these things, and it comes down to being this big like shedding of identity. It's the year of the snake. Like how do we not put those things together? And astrology is all about like what the planets and alignment looked like when you were born, right? And that's going to look different when and where. That's going to look different for everybody. And so it almost gives you this like predestined like path, and these are your skills, and these, because of, you know, what the alignment looked like, these are going to be your gifts. These are going to be the things that you struggle with. And if you ever read like a full astrology chart, like mine is so accurate, it's scary.
Same.
It's like it literally says I'm going to be a social worker. Literally talks about being a healer, talks about being in community, talks about doing things against the status quo. So for me, I can understand why it's hard for people to digest, but for me, the accuracy is so hard to ignore.
Yeah. If you're leading a team or organization right now, you know connection is no longer optional. I help teams build trust, navigate uncertainty, and lead with clarity in a changing world. Through real stories and practical insight, your audience will leave more confident and ultimately more connected. To bring me in to speak, visit gregtomczyk.com/book to speak. That's gregtomczyk.com/book to speak. Now let's get back to the conversation. Yeah, people have to try something before they judge it. And we're just so connected at an energetic level as humans, because you can tell, because when we get close to people, some people call it telepathy, but you can almost like, you can feel what that person is feeling or thinking, and that's as you get closer to them. So there's something deeper going on here. And you know, I look at my chart periodically, and it's for me, it's spot on. Of everything that's happened to me that was unintentional, where I could have followed what the outside world was just like telling me, like what my parents did. And like what a lot of people, that's why I think a lot of people are still so confused about who they are and what they want to do in the world, because they don't look into stuff like that. They expect a mentor or somebody to just tell them like, Carly, this is what you're meant to do based off what I see. And that's just one person.
Right. And we're not talking about like your daily horoscope. We're talking about like an astrological chart that's like, you know, a legit astrologer, and there's tons that, you know, we can plug in, but to look at the chart and what that means, not an everyday like horoscope, but
No.
yeah, definitely like what your strengths are and what your life path is. And that goes back to living in alignment. And when you're not living in alignment, it feels bad. And so if you found yourself like constantly feeling misaligned or that something's missing, then maybe you do look into something like your astrology chart and get some guidance and being like, oh yeah, well, no kidding. That like feels good. Like, okay, maybe I should be focusing on those things instead of like what mom and dad told me to do and be a banker.
Yeah. Right.
No one ever told me to be a banker.
No. Where would you recommend somebody to go if they're curious, they're listening in, they're like, I may believe in it or I don't, I may believe in it or I may not believe in it, but it'd be cool to see if it's accurate or not. Where should they go to?
So there's an app called CoStar, and it's user friendly and it's free. You're not going to get a whole chart reading, but you're going to get a lot. And then there's Channy Nicholas. She's an astrologer. She does charts. I have her app. It's like one of the things I splurge on. So you put in like where you're born, time, birthday, and then it gives you a whole chart reading. And then the whole app is like designed for you specifically.
Really?
Like your transitions. Yeah. The moon. I'll show it to you.
Is it does she break down? So I know there's planets, there's houses, and then what's the other? It's like but basically those get broken down into like different strengths and weaknesses areas. Does she take it and put it into action of like how it plays out or it could play out? Interesting. So Channy, Chani,
Nicholas.
Channy Nicholas.
Yeah. Because the planets rule different house, like our houses are responsible for different things, and the planets have their own gifts. Yep. And they do better in certain placements. And that's like when we talk about Mercury retrograde, right? Like Mercury is going counterclockwise, and then you see issues with like technology, things like that. One time my car in Mercury retrograde, it was in drive and it went backwards.
Oh God. It's not self-driving, is it?
No. I'll never forget it. I was like, wow, this is the most Mercury retrograde I've ever experienced because I'm literally in drive.
Yeah. Is astrology a part of your waves of change? Like for what you guys are doing at Waves of Change, is it?
For people who are open to it, there's a lot like, I'll be like, hey, if you're cool with it, like, let me look up your birthday and see and like get them to look at it on their own time and be like, does this resonate with you? A lot of them come back and say, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a therapist / life coach, and he kind of does both, but he provides a good foundation for me to explore different ideas. And we had never brought this element into it, and we did recently. And he's open-minded to like, and he was like, this is like everything I've learned about you is like in this paper. And it's one of those moments where I felt like it was a title change for like our dynamic, because we now had something to look at to see it all on like one pane of glass or one centralized area. Obviously it's not like word for word exactly how my life's going to play out. It's not going to tell me everything bad I'm going to go through, everything good. But as far as like traits and characteristics, it was like, this is what I feel is right for where I'm headed.
Exactly. But that's alignment. And it's like you said, like I made this decision to like pursue this instead of that. And it's worked out really beautifully for me because that's what you were meant to be doing. I was meant to be opening this business that blends these different modalities together. I was not meant to stay where I was.
Yeah. So since last time we spoke, what type of evolutions have you seen in the journey that you're putting your clients through? Like, I know you're doing sound healing, you do the kind of holistic therapeutic services, and trying to bring all this together. Because I think it's so important to not silo those things as a part of, because when they get brought together, we're multidimensional beings.
Absolutely.
So bringing those multidimensional of the senses and the ways to express ourselves, I think is extremely important.
So I love that question. One of the things is like sound healing will be its own thing. So like if you came in and you were like going through something really stressful, that we could talk about it, but like the situation's just not that great. I would suggest, do you want to come in and do sound healing so that we can give your nervous system a break and some reset, and you get some reprieve from that like heightened state? So that's one way. But a lot of times it's like, well, so the moon rules our emotions, right? So I'm an Aries moon, so that makes me very fiery. But using those as tools to be like, how do you want to respond? You can respond this way, sure. And then getting them to say like, well, is this a part? Is this a part of you that is vying for attention? And that's why you feel so conflicted, because you want to go this way, but there's this part of you that is like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't like this. We haven't been here. Or, hey, remember the last time we did this when we were 7? It's not going to go well, because our parts don't know that we've evolved.
Yeah.
Right. So they don't know that I'm now in my mid 30s and I've had all these life lessons and educations. And it's like, if this part of me who thinks I'm still 10, they're going to be like, girls, we don't do that.
Interesting. I think I hear a lot of people ask the big question of like, what would you tell your 10-year-old self, 25-year-old self? And a majority of the answers are, that I hear at least, are like, you're going to be okay. And you just realize, like when you're younger, you don't realize like what you're going through or if it's hard or not.
Yeah.
And then you look back as an adult and you're like, I now feel those parts that I ignored because I didn't know what was happening. So it's like victim of your environment. Versus somebody saying something like it just seems like that's the resounding. It's like, it'll be okay. Like it'll work out how it's supposed to, or like whatever you're going through at that moment will play out how it's supposed, like those types of, versus the polar opposite of, somebody just saying like, it's not that bad, or like they're giving themselves polar opposite, then it's going to be okay. It seems like people are, and it goes back to those parts where a lot of people don't see it until they're older, that they're 30, but they're speaking to their 7-year-old self.
No, absolutely. And I think that to piggyback off what you're saying though, like also telling your part, like, hey, it's going to get really gnarly from this time to this time. Like it gets rough, but like, yeah, you do make it through, and you meet a lot of really incredible people along the way, and you develop all these skills that you're going to need later in life. So there's going to be times that you feel like giving up. There's going to be times that you question everything. Just know that it's important that you keep going.
I think that's like resonance. I think about this, like, our higher self is mentoring that past younger self.
Yeah.
But a lot of times the younger self doesn't listen to that mentor. It's like, it's like, we don't listen to our parents, or we don't listen to the people oftentimes because we feel like they're jaded and they don't understand us.
So it's also like gentle parenting those parts, right? It's like, hey, your fear right now is really valid. And that's fine. Instead of being like, I just need to get rid of this fear and put it over here. Right. Or I'm not going to listen to you, or you're not going to listen to me. It's like, hey, I get that you do not like this, and this doesn't feel good, and you feel really scared, but it's going to be okay. Like you reinforcing to the part, like, yes, your feelings are valid. And I'm now 35 years old, and like we're doing things a little bit differently than the last time we checked in. Right. Because that's another part. When's the last time that you checked in with these parts? Maybe you haven't met your 5-year-old self since you were 5. So what do they know?
Yeah. I think it's just getting people listening in out of the wait till something bad happens to become aware of the parts.
Yeah.
And listening. And because we all want to be aware. I've never met anybody that said, I don't want to be, like, obviously there's avoidant people, and I'm one of those with a lot of things, but I've never met somebody that's like, I don't want to get better. I don't want to be aware, like over a long period of time. Obviously we go through phases where we may be like, I don't want any growth right now. Like I just want stability and peace.
Sure.
But most people want to be aware.
And I think parts work is one of those, like you don't need to be in crisis. This is a new way to meet yourself, so that if there's patterns that you've recognized and are confused about, maybe it's a part that keeps coming up, because if we don't have the language for something, then how do we name it? How do we move through it?
Yeah.
Right? You don't know what you don't know. So you're just like, man, I don't have an example, but you know, if you don't know that that's what's happening, because what Dick Schwartz talks about is we're not one-minded, and most of us think that we are.
Yeah.
So that when we're just working with this one mind, this one thought track, but that's not necessarily the case. And so I think that internal family systems is a great thing to look into, just in general, like for the people who want to grow, and you don't have to be in crisis, because it's not going to help you with your acute trauma, but it's going to definitely help you understand why you do things.
One of the breakthroughs I had once we parted from the last discussion, and I was listening to a translation of No Bad Parts. And from a young age, our coaches always taught us, when we wanted to criticize the umpires who were regulating the game, to never say you, but talk about their decision. And it all started like, I don't think they thought about like no bad parts.
Yeah.
But it makes so much sense for ourselves, is when we see something bad, when we see one of those bad parts, we're like, you're bad, Greg, because of that one bad part, versus being like, Greg, that decision, like I used to say to umpires, I was like, that was a bad decision, but it's not them as a person is inherently bad.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to look at ourselves too, because we get in the shame spiral. It's I'm bad because I feel this way, or I don't want to feel this way, so that makes me bad because I thought I was more healed than that, or what have you. And especially in partnership, our partners' parts are coming through, and we take them so personally. It's like personal attacks on us. And it's like, well, I really don't like you right now, but it's really, I don't like that part of you. I don't like this angry part of you. And for us to move forward, or for us to repair from this rupture, disagreement, argument, I need you to look at why that part is able to take over in the way, because like, that's not who you are. But in these situations, that part gets like greenlit to come forward and just like rage out. And that's not cool.
Yeah. No, I know. And for me, in past relationships before with my current partner, she understands this piece, that it's like pieces and parts are popping up. I know in past relationships, it was so hard to get better. It was so hard to improve in the way the other person wanted me to improve, because I was like looking at that one thing as the holistic. So it confused my ability to say, I need to do these couple things to resolve or heal that part or improve that one part. And it was hard to get better. And then it was hard for that other person to handle it, and vice versa, because I was confused myself. So.
Well, and it's also like, our parts are being triggered. So it's not just like looking outward and being like, hey, I don't like that part of you, but being like, what part of me is being activated? Yeah. What part of, like, this is my insecurity. Okay, well, let me be like, work with this and be like, hey, I get how you feel right now, but like, that's him being angry. That's him lashing out, And so I think it's also important that we're not always hyper-focused on what our partners are doing, but why we're responding and feeling the way that we feel.
Yeah. Yeah. The things that trigger them trigger us at the same time.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a double burden. It's like,
yeah, you do this. Well, yeah, because you did that. Well, if you didn't do that, then I wouldn't do this. And it's like, okay, well, we're not going to get anywhere. But
I think the relationship piece is critically important, and not that I think No Bad Parts is more focused on becoming more connected with the self, and that allows us to be better in relationships. But I think it's the people at the table, right? Those people are all in relationships with the higher self. So it's like, that is how we connect and relate ultimately to the world, through resolving those parts and addressing. And that is like the shell of a relationship. Like you trying to go out to the outside world and say like, I have these parts that I'm working on, and you have your parts that you're working on. Like, let's recognize them and work together on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important in relationships is to be able to like not see past them, but like see into somebody and being like, because we're all bringing stories and trauma and betrayals with us into our relationships. And unfortunately, that gets put on partners that had nothing to do with that a lot of times. And so, again, internal family systems is just another way to be aware of yourself so that you can work with it. Because if you don't know what's coming up for you, then how do you get through it? It's going to be a pattern that repeats because you're unaware.
Yeah, it's the mirror, right? We need the mirror, whether it's through a therapist or through our relationship. And I think when you know you need that mirror, that's the awareness. And then you find somebody who also wants to be that mirror for yourself and for you to be a mirror for them. And I think that's where the diminishing of the ego in that relationship context really happens. And I think that's where the beauty, the flow, the flawlessness, the things that people are like, wow, I want that, because it's not like me versus them, which is like everybody can feel that in an environment when it's like we're against each other, but we're here together, but we're against each other.
And I love that you brought up the ego because I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about what the ego is. And I think that people hear ego and they think like egotistical, but ego is the part of us from Freud, like way long ago, like psychology. It's the part that's driven by lack. So our ego is always striving for more and always going to tell us that we're not good enough. And it's always going to be seeking external validation, proof of worthiness through things, right? And so it's really important that we can recognize that and be like, that's my ego. That's not a truth right now.
Definitely. No, I think that's going to help a lot of people just start to make sense of it, because we tend to overcomplicate things as human beings, and we know we do it, but it's a lot of people are looking for a path to simplify, to get clarity, to ultimately get connection to what's right for them, and then they can bring that to the outside world. So that's definitely going to help a lot of people to get clarity. If somebody's just starting out, like what would you recommend? What would you recommend they do? Obviously, read the book.
Yeah. I would also, honestly, I would say to listen to it. Because he narrates it. And so, and he like walks you through the exercises. And I think that's a really cool way to be exposed to this type of framework. Because you can read it, sure, but are you really conceptualizing what he's saying? So if you listen to it on audio, it's just a whole different layer. And also, I think exploring like simplicity, looking into things about, I'm reading a book right now called Wabi Sabi. It's like Japanese imperfection. And essentially like nothing is perfect and nothing lasts forever. So when you're talking about simplifying, I think that that's one of the things, like when you realize that your mind is reeling, to just be like, okay, I'm going to put this to the side for a minute, come back to like mindfulness, come back to like this present moment, and recognize that I don't necessarily have to figure out or solve or make any decision in this moment. And I can just like exist for a little while, because whatever I'm feeling isn't going to last forever. And it's okay to be imperfect despite what the like Western world says. But I mean, that's a huge philosophy in Japan is imperfection and not having things be symmetrical. Not having things, even they don't even complete, like some things aren't even complete because there's an example. He's like, I rake all the leaves, but I leave one leaf.
There's definitely something to that where we feel like we have to complete everything all the time, but maybe the right end product is it finished like 90%.
Exactly. Because then we're overthinking it, right? Then the ego steps in and is like, oh, but this isn't good enough.
Yeah, failure.
Yeah.
Are there any realizations or things that you've been, meditating on or that we have not talked about?
No, everything that we've talked about today is like things that have been very prevalent in my life right now. Definitely the ego, definitely being able to recognize when what's coming up and that lack and that worthiness is an ego-driven thing, and to be like, okay, it is okay to not measure myself and my worth by what I'm producing. Definitely being aware of my parts and what's coming up for me, and just allowing this final shed. I think the one thing that I've leaned into in my own healing journey is just trusting the process. And as cliche as that sounds, but that's the only thing I can do. And my belief that like what's meant for me is going to find me, and nothing that is meant for me can miss me.
Yeah.
So just having that kind of that blind trust and that blind faith, otherwise we'll go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, we will. Before we
More
get to the final question, where can folks connect with you and engage with you at Waves of Change?
I'm on Instagram, Waves of Change Coalition. I have a website, wavesofchangecoalition.com. And I have a newsletter that I put out every Friday. And I talk a lot about astrology. I do like Chinese zodiac and traditional Chinese medicine. And so similar to this conversation, I incorporate a lot of different frameworks into it. And I try and make it educational to the reader so that they're getting something like my knowledge shared with them to help them navigate a little bit easier through life. So that's on my website as well. You scroll down, there's a place to sign up for my newsletter. You can work with me one-to-one doing sound healing. All of that's on the website as well. Or you can message me on Instagram, or I have a TikTok, but that's unhinged. I think I said that last time. It's not professional.
Yeah. I know I've tried the sound healing and it's revolutionary. I think we used to do light meditation with different tunage in baseball. Cool. But sound healing takes it to the next level because there's another person involved in creating the sound that they feel. And I think there's a lot of power to that and a lot of connection to that pops up that I would encourage anybody to try out.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people that want to try it, but their ego is holding them back from.
Yeah, and it's not something you can really understand. Like I can explain it until I pass out, but until you try it and experience it, then it's like, okay, now I get it, because there's a immediate shift. Like you're gonna leave being like, oh wow, yeah, I do feel different. But you're not, if I tell you you're going to feel wonderful, you're like, oh, you're just trying to like sell me. So you just come experience it for yourself, and I'll let you know.
Absolutely. So in our last discussion, I had asked you what connection meant to you. And the theme of it was around not questioning generational lines and just kind of going with what we felt we were encouraged to do by others, and taking in all of the traumas as well. And like that was disconnecting us, and kind of getting out of that mindset would help us better connect. So I'm curious, as yourself today and everything you've been through since our last discussion, how does connection show up, or what does connection really mean to Carly today?
I think from this conversation, I think that it's important. And something that this conversation helped me realize is that the connection with ourself is one of the most important connections that we're going to have. If I don't have a good connection with myself, then it's going to be hard for me to make good connections with other people. So I think that today, connection means connected with the self.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you're feeling more connected from this episode, please like, subscribe, and share with someone that you care about. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Connected Mindset Podcast.